I helped neurodivergent Ali cut his screen time by 77%, 30% of which we achieved with this one easy step alone. In this video, I'll share the one trick that'll help your teen son too cut his screen time by at least 30%, even before implementing the big picture screen time reset mechanism that helped Ali get to 77%. While teen phone use is directly correlated to social anxiety, depression, emotional dysfunction, and ADHD-like symptoms. This is fairly well known, but I'm just here to refresh your memory on that. Moreover, average phone use is highly dopamine evoking because of infinite algorithmic feeds like TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, Reddit, so on and so forth. And so the time audit with Ali showed that he averaged 7.5 hours a day, which is actually in some respects conservative, as there are kids who average 9 hours a day. Of course, there's always a bit of a difference between like this kind of lumps everything together. It doesn't just include like if a boy's on his phone for 9 hours, it's not going to be entirely 9 hours of scrolling in the highly dopamine evoking environment of the algorithmic feeds that are, you know, infinity loops essentially. But long story short, it's still a terrible state of affairs to be at 7.5 hours a day. And that obviously, that average promotes all of the above symptoms that I just mentioned in the first bullet point. Moreover, excessive screen time is not primarily a discipline problem, but a developmental vulnerability. So in other words, this is because your son's brain doesn't fully mature until age 25 roundabout, because the PC, the prefrontal cortex, also known as the impulse control center or executive function, needs that long to fully come into its own. If you want a copy of this Google Doc and to learn more about helping your son handle his phone addiction, I'm sharing it in my free community, so click the link in the description to join. All right, so let's get it. So one trick that I want to share here before we even talk about anything else, which I'm going to discuss in my upcoming videos, is to move the phone charging location out of the bedroom. The phone charging location and the phone in general should never enter the bedroom, but especially at night, we charge outside the bedroom. Why is that? Because it eliminates the 3 highest risk screen periods, which is late night scrolling, first thing in the morning scrolling, and midnight wake up checking. This is one of the worst habits to be forming, is to have your phone, you know, in bed with you, under your pillow, or just, you know, within arm's reach, you know, over to the side of the bed. These 3 windows alone account for a huge portion of daily screen time. I don't know exactly right now the number, but I'll get back to you on that. And most compulsive phone use isn't intentional. It is actually a reflexive kind of micro-checking triggered by proximity. So let's call a spade a spade. It is just a terrible habit, and it's not really like most bad habits, right? So it's not intentional. All right, so the outcome of this one step alone that I observed in Ali, and that I am very confident that your teen son would experience equally easily, or just as easily rather, is that just moving where the phone is being charged to the hallway or to the living room or the kitchen, that alone cuts teen screen time by 30 to up or even up to 50% before the actual reset even begins, which is a thing I will be discussing in the upcoming videos, as I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago. So this is like the first thing, the easy first win that you can get by just doing that and enforcing that before we even talk about anything else that has to do with environment design and setting up his phone in the right way for him to not have to rely on willpower or anything like that. And within 2 days, Ali's screen time was down by those 30%, which is almost half of his total time reduction of 77%, right? And that was, of course, that longer mechanism that I use on him over 21 days. Additional tweaks to compound the effect are turn all notifications off except calls and direct messages, remove the most addictive apps from the home screen, which actually could be deleting them altogether or burying them in folders, and then additionally also logging out of the most addictive app once per week, so it requires a password again. In fact, this is actually now goes into some of the further steps there that I'll be discussing in that 21-day screen time reduction mechanism. But it's just highly recommended. So stick around, and I'll be telling you more about this in the next couple of videos. I currently have 2 spots open to work with me one-on-one to help your son build social skills and also, first of all, reduce his phone addiction and his screen time. So if you're curious, there's a link to apply in the description. First come, first serve. Okay, now the conclusion, real brief. Just to kind of highlight this again, teen brains experience stronger dopamine rewards but have weaker impulse control. As I was mentioning earlier, that's because of the prefrontal cortex not fully maturing until around about age 25, and this is actually more pronounced in men than in women. And that's why I like to, well, that's one of the reasons why I focus on teen men more than teen women. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. And so this is the most addiction sensitive phase of life. Let's just be clear about that. And then the key principle is that you basically, by moving the phone charging locations out of the bedroom, you add those 2 to 3 seconds of friction to the behavior that you want less of, because he's basically going to have to get up and he's going to think twice about getting up to like walk over to the other room and interact with his phone. And these tiny delays interrupt brain habit circuitry, which allows us to rewire his brain essentially. And this is obviously best done when it happens early while he's a teenager. So I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great day.